Hello, welcome to 10-Minute English with May. Today we are talking about the difference between nouns, gerunds, and infinitives. So, as we know, there are 8 parts of speech that make up an English sentence. Nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And nouns are usually one of the most important parts of speech in a sentence because it makes up the subject or the object or something called a predicate noun. But we know that a noun is either a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Now, sometimes there are words that can function as different parts of speech. So certain verbs, they can also sometimes be used as a noun. For example, stop, you need to stop. This is usually a verb, but when we see bus stop, that would become a noun. So same thing with run. To run, this is an action verb, or to walk, this is also an action verb, but we can use it as a noun as well. For example, let's go for a walk or let's go for a run. Other examples include jump, right? Jump is an action verb, but you can also say that was an impressive jump. And of course, ride, right? I can ride a horse. That would be a verb, but you can also say the roller coaster ride was thrilling. So you can see in examples like these, when you are using a verb as a noun, it would actually be a countable noun. So chances are you are going to have an article like a and the in front of your noun. So what about gerund and infinitives? Gerund we know is a verb ing, a verbal that functions as a noun, like eating, writing, singing. Same thing with infinitives. When infinitives are used as a noun, like to eat, to write, to sing, like gerund, they are probably interchangeable because they're either functioning as the subject or object of the sentence. So now let's take a look at some examples. Running a marathon or to run a marathon takes a lot of training. So in this example, the gerund phrase running and the infinitive phrase to run, they are pretty much the same thing. They're both functioning as the subject. So depending on your preference, you can either use the gerund or the infinitive. For me personally, whenever I'm starting a sentence, I tend to use a gerund phrase. So number 2 would be the same, jumping that high or to jump that high is impressive. So both phrases, they're used as the subject of the sentence. Or you can say for number 3, I like dancing in the rain, gerund phrase, or I like to dance in the rain. So both of these phrases, they are functioning as the object of the verb like. So they are also interchangeable. And for number 4, Johnny's hobby is collecting coins, or it is to collect coins. So here they are following the be verb, and that means they're both functioning as the predicate noun. So keep in mind the difference between a direct object, an object, and a predicate noun is it depends on what kind of verb it follows. So if it follows an action verb or a transitive verb, it's called a direct object. Whereas when it follows an intransitive verb, a linking verb to be exact, it will be called a predicate noun. All right, what about number 5? So learning English is our gerund phrase here. It is following the preposition of, so it is functioning as the object of the preposition. So this is where you cannot use an infinitive phrase. You cannot say, I'm tired of to learn English. So whenever you want to use a verbal phrase after a preposition, like in, on, at, to, of, from, between, among, you can only use a gerund phrase. All right, so now does that mean gerund phrase and an infinitive phrase as noun are always the same? Not exactly. So there can be differences. So for gerunds, we tend to use them to talk about completed or ongoing actions. Okay, it implies that the action is habitual, ongoing, or completed at the time you are talking about that action. So, for example, I remember going to that concert last year. It means that you already went to that concert, the action of going happened. You are now thinking about it, recollecting it. Whereas if you're reminding someone when you haven't been to the concert, you say, hey, remember to go to that concert. It is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Don't miss it. The ticket's very expensive. You can see remember to go to that concert. That hasn't happened yet. Right. So unlike remember going, where the action has happened, when you say someone needs to remember to do something, it's a reminder something that's going to happen in the future. So the second example, she enjoys reading in the evening. So this is talking about habits, which is ongoing action, habitual. So it is often used with adverbs of frequency, right? She often enjoys reading in the evenings. She often goes jogging before work, so on and so forth. Now, for infinitives, like we've stated before, it is used for future or potential actions. So they are used to imply that the action is yet to happen, or it is more abstract, like a potential future or intended action. I want to go to that concert next month. So you wouldn't say, I want going to that concert, right? Because next month, it hasn't happened yet. She plans to read tonight. Again, it is for a later plan. All right, now let's compare the differences. I stopped smoking and I stopped to smoke. So I stopped smoking, meaning you already quit smoking. Whereas when you say I stopped to smoke, it means you stopped whatever you were doing in order to smoke. So after certain verbs, whether you're using an infinitive or a gerund can change the meaning drastically. So for number two, I remember locking the door. Again, this is a gerund phrase. So it means that you did lock the door and now you are just recollecting that action. Lock the door already. Whereas remember to lock the door, this is a reminder for a future action. So for the third example, I regret telling him the truth. This is a gerund. So did you tell him the truth? Yes, you did. Told him the truth already, and now you are regretting it. So a finished action. Now, I regret to tell you this, whatever this is, you haven't told them anything yet. So this is used to inform someone that you are going to tell them something unfortunate, right? So this is kind of used as an announcement. Now, question time. Let's choose the correct form, whether to use a noun, a gerund, or an infinitive. You might be able to use more than one. All right, so for number one, running to run or a run is good for your health. In this case, we can use all three, although my personal preference would be running and a run. All right, sometimes when you use infinitive phrase as the subject, you can sound a little bit pretentious, like to be or not to be. That is the question. All right, number two, I decided blah 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 on the vacation next month. So next month indicates that this is a future action, and for something that hasn't happened yet, we would use an infinitive. So I decided to take a vacation. So you can see whenever you want to use an action of verbal after the word decide, you usually decide to do something, a future plan, you would use infinitive. All right, let's look at number three. So, Swimming to swim or a swim in the ocean is fun. So again, we are using this as the subject. So probably all three would be okay. And again, my personal preference would be swimming or a swim. So remember, when you're using it as a noun, you want to have the article, a swim. It is countable. All right, number four. He promised blah 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 me with my homework. So he promised that he would help me do that. So he hasn't helped me yet. So it would be B. Okay, so when you're making a promise for a future action, you want to use infinitive. Number five is the same thing, playing the piano, to play the piano, and play the piano. Wait, in this case, you can see, hey, it doesn't work because whenever you have the object here, right, it is an action, playing the piano or to play the piano, but you cannot say play the piano because if you're using play as a noun, it doesn't take on object, right? So that is a difference. But here you can either use the gerund or the infinitive. Again, I would prefer using playing the piano, probably. Okay, but they are both acceptable. All right. And let's look at our last two examples. I want to learn or I want learning. I want a learn. So a learn wouldn't work in this case. Why not? Because how to ride a bike, this is our object. When it is used as a noun, it does not take on object. You can only use verbal. All right. So here I want, meaning you don't know how to ride a bike yet. It is talking about future action. So you want to use infinitive. I want to learn how to ride a bike. Okay, number seven, to run a run running. In the morning, this is a prepositional phrase, so you don't have an object here. So actually, all three of them would be okay. To run in the morning makes me feel refreshed. A run in the morning makes me feel refreshed, or running in the morning makes me feel refreshed. Again, I probably wouldn't use the infinitive because personal preference, running sounds a little bit natural, but a run would be okay as well. All right, so that is the gist about nouns, gerunds, and infinitives used as nouns. So just keep in mind that sometimes they're interchangeable, while other times when they're followed after certain verbs or when you're using prepositions, you have to decide whether you have to use gerunds or infinitives, usually based on whether it is ongoing action, finished action, or whether it is something that you wish to do in the future. All right. Thank you for listening. I'll see you again.